Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we are continuing with our 3 Rideamatics project, and today we're going to be hopefully starting this red 1962 up and seeing if it will start and drive. The first thing we're going to look at today is why this panel is loose. Now, if we look at these bolts, they are kind of finger tightness, but then become very stiff very quickly. So we kind of need to investigate that. And it is kind of strange, seeing as this is the only panel that in theory, or one of the only panels, that you shouldn't need to take off at all. It is simply a guard. Well, not really a guard, it just kind of covers up most of the gear lever and acts as a selector pattern there. But I'll just take these off, just got to get these 2 bolts out and then remove the gear knob. Then effectively we can just lift this up and see what lies below, see if there's any answers there. I believe when it comes to those 2 bolts, they are just like captive nut things under the chassis, which is why I didn't have to hold anything when I was undoing them. That is off now. And I should be able to push this forward and up. There we are. And that's a lot of dust and metal chips and rusty looking things. Nothing really to explain why those bolts were undone or anything like that. I'm just going to use the torch to kind of look at some of the threads. It does look like there is a decent amount of rust and dirt in those, so I think we should probably get a tap through those to clean them out a bit. We've run a tap through both of those captive nuts now to clean them out, and we also bolted these in the vise by the head and ran a die along these threads too on the bolts, so they should be nice and clean, ready to go back on. And once again, I'm not fully sure what the reasoning behind taking this panel off was for the previous owners, but that'll be going back on nice and tightly by us. So I'm just going to use this opportunity to check our gearbox oil levels. Which I take this dipstick out, should be SAE 20 or SAE 30 in here. That doesn't taste, I almost said taste very good, but it doesn't smell very good at all. I'll dip this back in here to try and gauge the level. Yeah, that smelled horrible. Take this back out again. And that is around what it should be level wise. So for now, we'll leave this horrible smelling stuff in here. And we are probably just about ready to start putting this plate back on. I'll just dump this over here, and I'll probably, where's the bolt holes gone? There they are. Probably need to kind of try and center this between the 2 sides, which I might actually get a tape measure or ruler or something out to do it a bit more accurately. And we'll be back with you in a second with this bolted down, hopefully relatively centrally. We've got this kind of gear selector panel bolted down now, and it did kind of come to our mind that maybe they were having, a previous owner was maybe having issues with the gears or something, and that's why they took it off. but we won't know until we try to drive this. But let's hope for the best when it comes to that. Next, we're going to move on to greasing the tractor. And this grease nipple here is a good example of what we found all around this, which is a many years old paint job completely covering the grease nipple, which I will kind of scrape away some of the paint on there so that it can actually be used. Now, this grease nipple here isn't just any grease nipple, it goes into the differential, and according to the manual, for every service you do, you should do 10 strokes of your grease gun into there to top up the grease levels. Now obviously this hasn't been serviced or grease hasn't been put in there since this was repainted, which by the state of the paint was quite a while ago. But we'll stick to what the manual says about 10 strokes of a grease gun. And we've also got to go around and find the other 14 grease points, scrape the paint off and top them up with grease too. We found all 15 grease points, so we've greased up the entire tractor now. And what we're going to do now is put the seat back on. So we'll put it in the middle position, which is I think what we're going to do with all of our Rideamatics now. There we are. Just put the wind nut on the bottom of it. This seat cover hasn't been an issue for the bolt coming out of its kind of square hole that it's in, so that's good. And that is tight on there. However, it does have that slightly annoying kind of wobble that these seats tend to have. Even with that done up as tight as I can get it, it still wobbles a bit. But I think that's just how it's going to be. Seems to be how it is on some of our other ones. So what we're going to do now is take this tractor off the bench and see if we can get it to start. Quite a long time later now, and the tractor is on the floor. It is quite a long time later because we had some issues with batteries and earths and other electrical stuff like that, but we think we have solved those now. So it's time to see if all of our fixes and stuff we've done to this tractor will allow this to start. Now, if it does start, then we'll leave it to warm up for a bit before trying to drive it out. But I mean, there's nothing that should be stopping it starting at the moment, but we'll see. Just give it a bit of choke to help it along a bit. Ignition on. Back in the workshop now because just after that last clip where it was running very well, We stopped the tractor, and when we tried to go again, we couldn't really, because by the looks of it, on the Rideamatic, this belt is stuck in the most kind of up position, and then the opposite with the belt next to it, which meant that we couldn't actually get into a proper forwards gear, and then we were struggling to get it fully into the brake position to change gear and stuff like that. Somehow we managed to get it round here, but now that it is, we need to do some investigation. But before we do that, we're going to let the exhaust cool. There was some sort of debris that it was burning off. That seems to have mostly gone now, but that's quite hot, so we'll let that cool before we do any investigation. Only other problem was the fact that I was getting slimed with grease, which you can kind of see the grease line going along the chassis. And yeah, that was just covering my left leg. But we'll come back to you in a few minutes once that's cooled down a bit. Turns out it isn't actually a few minutes later, it's the next day, because we spent absolutely ages head scratching, trying to work out what could have possibly gone wrong on here. We were thinking maybe something went wrong with the Rideamatic, or it had seized up or something. But the fix was actually annoyingly easy and annoyingly exactly what we wouldn't want to happen, which is that we switched our new belts for the old ones, and we started the tractor up on the bench, put the gearbox in neutral, put the Rideamatic lever forward. Everything worked as it should do, and it was all perfectly fine again. So clearly these belts are the issue. Now if we look at them, there's some friction marks on only two opposite ends of the belt, not evenly across the whole thing or anything. That's actually taken quite a dent out of them. So that shows that stuff really wasn't right with these. Now this is a new type of belt, or new brand of belt that we haven't used before. So I'm not sure if that's the issue, or if this is adjusted for slightly bigger belts, seeing as we showed you in the video where we installed these, this belt is slightly shorter than the one that's on it at the moment. So I'm not sure if that had been adjusted for that or something like that. Honestly, we don't know, but we're going to get a set of this sized belts from our usual supplier, so in future we can kind of test that out, see if that still works or whether it needs the slightly longer belt. But as I said, we have no clue on that one really. But as you can see, we fitted up the grille and the hood again. So what we're going to do now is pull it off the bench, go outside and try to take it for a drive again. So as you saw in all of that video, this Rideamatic now runs very well. It happily ran at different kind of rev levels, and it sped around quite fast when I revved it up a bit. There are a few faults that we've kind of noticed, which are that the charging system doesn't really work. The button on the Versamatic did kind of stick at times, which it just did a bit there. But we have put some WD-40 and releasing agent and stuff on there. That's now going back up again nicely. And of course the issue that we've known about the whole time, which is this lift lever is bent up, so it doesn't really want to move very easily. And another one that we noticed is that it drinks fuel very quickly. So that's just something to keep in mind with this tractor, but we're very happy with kind of the condition that we've gotten it to so far. Now, obviously this is a 3 Rideamatics project, even though we've made the last few videos specifically about this one. So now that this is running, we can kind of use it as a template to use as reference for the other 2. And the question you might be thinking is, which do we move on to next? Now, the logical thing would be to move on to the 61 because it was running more recently and has less parts missing off of it. However, we haven't been able to get hold of all of the parts we need to make that engine complete. Specifically, one of these pulleys that mounts on the end of the crankshaft, and then the belt goes from here onto the electric start. So if anyone is selling one of these, or has one of these that they would like to sell for a Kohler K161, please do get in touch, because we would very much like to get one of these as soon as possible. Then we can kind of assemble all of the parts to go onto that engine, and then start looking at that. However, since we don't have those parts, we're going to move on to the 1962, the orange one. And obviously, as we highlighted before, this has some interesting things going on with its engine, which we kind of need to have a look at, see what's going on there, and see if this engine is realistically viable, or if we're going to transplant something into it, which we have a few candidates for engines that we could put into here that would make it still relatively kind of original specs and stuff. But we'll talk more about that in a future video. For now, that is it for this video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.